Okay, welcome to the Crow Discovery Project. I'd like to wish everybody a happy Saturnalia, Merry Christmas, or Happy Winter Solstice, however you choose to call this time of year. This is a really good interview. I got confused and called in late, as you'll hear when I first pick up. I didn't realize I had this interview today, so I called up and was basically live when I got there. Here it is, and happy holidays to everybody.
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
This is Crow, guys. Is this the right
Crow,
number?
There's something
I'm so
going on
confused.
there's something going on with our phone system. It shows on here that the phone is still ringing, yet here you are with me, and
I'm so confused because I did an interview yesterday with Spain, and I had, I guess, confused that your emails and David's emails were the same person. So I totally apologize.
I'm so glad you're here.
I gotta say, I have enjoyed your channel so much. We have Crrow, and to spell that, it's Crrow 777. He's on YouTube, and he has 50,000 subscribers. He has uncovered one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen in my life. And if you have the ability, you must get on YouTube and look him up, because what we're going to try to talk about today, it's much better to actually see it with your own eyes versus just to hear us describe it. Crrow, would you mind kind of telling us about the lunar wave and how this all happened?
Well, sure. I guess what folks should probably know is I bought my first kind of really nice 8-inch robotic scope in the mid-'90s when the equipment was still made in quality in America. At that time, I was a big NASA follower and, trying to make my own images look like the Hubble images and all that malarkey. But as time went on, I kept at it, and in the fall of 2012, right at the fall equinox, actually, and on the highest holy Jewish holiday, Yom Kippur, I filmed what is now termed a lunar wave. And for people to kind of visualize what it looks like, it's maybe if you can imagine taking an old-style video camera with a tape and filming an old-style tube TV, the wave that you see go across the screen. But I did this all with digital equipment, and you see a wave start at the bottom of the moon and then followed by another. The lunar wave always comes in pairs, and it just kind of transverses the moon. The 2012 footage is the best we have by a mile. I believe 9 people have filmed it somewhere between 12 and 16 times now. I filmed it 6 times. There's another gentleman in New Jersey who has filmed it 5 times. Got a friend in Houston who's got it a couple times. There's a gentleman in Germany. Anyhow, the 2012 footage stands alone as the best example of the lunar wave. And in that footage, there are also energy pulses which came to light on a 62-inch monitor maybe a year, I don't even remember, 6 months to a year after the fact, that really demonstrate that not only is the wave local to the moon, but the way it was filmed initially also proves that the equipment plays no role. But anyone who understands digital equipment would know this. So there it is.
Now, okay, if we go back to the beginning of your own intro there, you said tried to match the Hubble images and all that malarkey.
Yeah.
So what I garnered from that is that you believe the Hubble images are malarkey.
Everything from NASA, everything from any global, or I don't even use the word global anymore. That's how bad it's gotten. In this world, any space agency that is showing the public imagery, supposed missions, anything from space, it's fraud. NASA's mission from its inception has been to ensure that we know nothing about what is called space. And when I say that, I'm talking about the space that was kind of defined in the public consciousness by Star Trek, Star Wars, and NASA. It's all malarkey. It's proven malarkey. People who have looked into this can understand that the moon landing is complete fraud. It's demonstrable fraud. It's not really an arguable point. And this kind of points to the problem with science. I am not an anti-science person. I grew up with a father who was a PhD and a very scholastic home life. But having said this, if you were to take evidence of the Apollo landings into science people around the planet and say, hey man, let's take our scientific method and look at this and call it one way or the other, it wouldn't get done because the religion that science has become has already adopted that the moon landing is real. And therein is the problem with science. But to get back to your question, any of the Hubble stuff that you see could easily be taken with terrestrial scopes, particularly with the modern digital processing that comes on the tail of everything that's done. I started using film back in the 90s, and when I first started, it's a funny thing. I got my Sky and Telescope magazine, or whichever one I was subscribed to at the day, and I'd see these beautiful, colorful nebula. Well, I finally got my 8-inch scope, and I looked at M42, the Orion Nebula, and I was really let down. It looks like a little cottony, whitish-gray blob. And you're sitting there going, damn it, man. And so then you learn, you go back and you start learning. Well, you see, your eye doesn't work like a camera. Your eye doesn't collect the light, so you can't see the color. Okay, so I got a camera, an Olympus, and I used film. And so I did some photography that's probably the hardest damn photography you can ever do. You have to track a star with illuminated cross in your eyepiece and keep it perfectly centered while you're trying to film this nebula so that the stars don't streak. And you're doing this for like 10, 15, 20 minutes at a shot. So I finally get my nebula shots back. And I did all these things, used slides, and there's this big red nebula. So I got my color, but it's red. So now I'm pissed off, and I go back and I look, and I start, well, if you use Fujifilm, you'll get some greens in there. So sure enough, I'm out getting Fujifilm. Well, this goes on and on and on. And sure, I get a little more color than red, but it becomes very apparent very quickly that what you're looking at when you look at a Hubble image is a construct. It's a processed image. It is not a snapshot as we would expect a snapshot to be. It is wholesale image creation and manufacture, the color on top of a basis of some light that we see up there. And as time went on, you come to understand. I've got thousands of hours of lunar filming and sky watching, and things come to light, like the hardest thing you could ever try to film, harder than a lunar wave, which is probably the hardest thing you can try to film, is to film a satellite transiting the moon that you can ID as a satellite. Early on in my YouTube career, I thought I had two, one called Picard, another one called Bright PL. Picard had everything going. The trajectory was about right, the speed was about right, the time was about right, closest I'd ever seen. And then I read up on it. Well, it's a microsatellite. It's a 1-foot cube that supposedly my 8-inch telescope at the time saw from 300 miles away. Not possible. So that couldn't have been. The other one was Bright PL at the time, which I accepted as a satellite, but as time went on, I went back to try to vet it, and it can't be done.
Well, I thought there were like 10,000 satellites up there.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So I've just told you, in my view, satellites do not exist as they have been described. You just told me what everyone says. There's 10,000 of them up there, but actually more, according to what we're told,
more
because
like
all
30.
all the broken ones, and all the other junk that would be sent up and not listed somewhere, supposedly. But, so we live in the high-definition age. Let's just apply a little logic here. In the high-def age, anything amazing that can be filmed will be filmed. Why, in creation's name, has an astronaut not poked a camera out the ISS window and showed us an amazing satellite in amazing space doing the amazing thing it does? And I'll tell you why. Because first of all, there's no International Space Station with people on it. There are no satellites. And I defy you to go find footage anywhere of a satellite doing what a satellite does. It doesn't exist.
I like the satellite selfies. Where, it's of course it's just a manufactured, produced image of a satellite with the Earth in the background.
Of course.
And
But
see, I believed in this stuff 2 months ago, man. This is all new to me.
Well, I mean, come on, man.
Well, I have to add, Crow, if you don't mind, Jared White, he was our previous guest just in the last hour, and he swears that the International Space Station is real, that you can film it from the ground, and that you can actually even catch astronauts sometimes out on walks. What's your response to Jared White?
Good for him, man. Show me the footage, my friend. There is a light. People say they film it all the time. No, you're filming a light. I can film a light out there in the night sky any night of the week. To call that the ISS is ridiculous. Someone just sent me this morning this beautiful HD footage of the moon with a nice white rotating ISS going across the front of it, but it's 3D animation. You see, because the moon is so bright, I've filmed it, you can dim it down, but it's backlighting whatever you're shooting. So anything that goes across under those conditions is going to be black because it's so brightly backlit. And here's this white ISS, perfect focus, coming across, doing... And the funny thing is, we're told it's going something like 17,000 miles an hour. Well, if you look at the NASA-presented stuff, it goes across the face of a full moon in less than a second. So you can see the fraud that's going on. They're even producing, or people are producing, this, BS to try to get people to buy into the International Space Station. But it doesn't take a lot of effort to go look at the work on YouTube people have done that just call out the wholesale fraud, from the supposed weightless environment not being correct, the wires, the filming in pools, the kind of women upside down so their hair will be up, and the hairspray, permed hair. I mean, it goes on and on. There is no International Space Station. There are no people in space. And there is no evidence that even demonstrates we can go beyond what's called low Earth orbit. Nothing. And people can go out and look at this for themselves. Look at rocket launches. There's plenty on YouTube to go choose from. What you see is a rocket go up. It arcs very quickly and very hard over the ocean. In many cases, you can see it coming back down, and then quite typically, as it begins to arc super hard, the video is cut. This is what we have of launches. And I've said to NASA in public, invite me with my meager equipment, because I can film things at that distance, to film something going all the way. Can't be done. As a matter of fact, there was a clip presented to me yesterday. I think it is called the highest altitude for an amateur rocket. And it shows the rocket go, what was it, 73 miles, I think is the claim on the clip or something. But it's funny because there's a camera on the outside of it, and it's spinning, of course, as it goes up. So you can see the ground below spinning. And all of a sudden it gets up to 73 miles, and it just, boom, stops spinning and starts falling back down. Very curious piece of footage. But what I'm telling you, this is the high-def age. Why in the heck do we not have footage of a rocket going all the way to space or re-entering? It just doesn't exist. And people will try to pass off. There was a piece of footage that made around where there was a supposed rocket with a camera on the outside, but it's clearly a Hollywood special. I mean, there it is, man. I defy you. Show me a ground-based perspective, someone filming a rocket going all the way or coming back in, either one.
Okay, now, I hear what you're saying on that, but I want to take it back to the moon and the moon wave, because when I saw that, I immediately sent it to my father-in-law, my brother-in-laws, and they watched it too. And the reason I did is because we have conversations around the dinner table like, okay, as the windshield wipers are going back and forth, if the motor that drives them never stops spinning, when those windshield wipers change direction, do they ever stop? And one person will say, well, it has to, because it has to go the other direction. And then the other person will say, they're just very analytical like that, right?
Yep.
So I sent this to Paul. He's my brother-in-law, and he's going to listen to the recording of this show. Cool. But he said this. Well, it looks like he forgot, he being you.
Yep.
Looks like he forgot to factor in the variance of the frequency in electrical translation that is common in all HD components. And
really?
it almost as if he pulled it off of a website somewhere. And then he said, when you consider that hertz are also apparent on an oscilloscope in a sine wave, it easily explains this phenomena. And he lost me.
Okay, well, let's address that real quick, because
All
it's very simple. What the human mind is doing in this case, I believe, is saying, I see this thing that I need to explain away really quick because there's no way in hell it's real.
Right.
The way the 2012 footage was filmed proves, bulletproof proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that equipment can play no role, and here's why. And this throws aside the fact that digital equipment does not fail in an organic way. But here's why we know that not to be true. When I film the moon, and my wife does it differently, I keep centered on the moon to improve my odds. She likes to wander around and do stuff with the camera. I always like to kind of stay centered to hopefully not miss anything. For some strange reason, at the very moment that wave was about to start, I had panned the scope down below the moon, did not notice the wave begin, panned the camera above the wave, back up on the center of the moon, and the wave caught up to the camera.
You didn't even notice the wave at first.
That is bulletproof. Well, not only does it start, but there is an energy pulse, which I have broken down in clips. When I first pan down, all this goes on, and then I pan up above, and you can see all this going on, the energy pulse. But the fact that I panned down, the wave started, at the time did not notice, panned the camera up, and saw the wave come into frame, proves, flat out, no argument, that it is a filmed event. Now, other evidence, like the energy pulses and a video engineer who showed me how to use gamma and noise and some things to demonstrate that the wave was not crossing the video frame. These things tell us it's local to the moon and it is a filmed event. And it's not really arguable. The problem is that I have spent God knows how many hundreds of hours with other people from every walk of life, from CCD chip engineers to physicists. I mean, everyone has seen the lunar wave. And it has not been debunked. And the people who have actually put time in, not just looked at it and said, how can I explain this away, understand what I do. The way it was shot proves it's a filmed event. The energy pulses, it doesn't cross the frame. These other things mean stuff too. Now, to be fair to folks, the lunar wave footage on its own means so much. But with the research and thousands of hours of observation and filming added to that, it really becomes a piece of evidence that means a whole heck of a lot more. Truth is, what your brother-in-law has said, he can go back having heard my response and quickly confirm that what I have said is correct.
He says that we can easily be misled by myopic nuances like this.
Well, we can all smoke dope too, right? And we can all be stoned. I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah, it's crazy because first of all, what reason do you have to be sharing this information, and what does it mean? Like, first of all, I think I know the answer to my first question. Is if I saw something like that, I want to show everybody, like right away. Obviously.
Well, I didn't. I filmed it in 2012. I didn't start my YouTube channel until, October 2013, I think, off the top of my head. I hope I got that right. You know, I had it for quite some time.
Were you afraid of a reaction?
Well, I actually went out and, I did the thing that people did, when something, I had all these objects I filmed transitting the moon, so I made the mistake of going to a freaking fraudulent MUFON meeting. Learned real quick what that was about when I showed my footage, and one of the regular guys that shows up on Ancient Aliens, some debunker from Ancient Aliens, just kind of rode me the whole time I was trying to show my footage, ruined kind of my whole effort to demonstrate to the people in the room what was going on. But to top it off, the head, this kind of older gentleman, warned me that there were government agents in the room, and I kind of went, yeah, I've heard that. But when I got in there, here's this Hollywood jackass who just, 10 seconds into my first footage, just jumps on me like a pony, rides me all the way to the end, and then at the end tries to get my footage. So I realized, what I know to be true about groups now, but MUFON's a put-up. These people are not interested in finding anything new. And I went to other kind of places like that in San Diego, and I realized real quickly, if you want to do something, this is the age of breaking barriers from the individual. And MUFON's a prime example. You want to go waste your time there, you're joining a group that has basically been infiltrated and exists just so they can keep tabs on who's saying what about, whatever, I guess. But even the guy who ran the group warned me that there were unsavory people in there, and he was damn right. It was one of the rudest things I've ever seen, and come to know that, the guy's a TV guy for Ancient Aliens of all places, which makes it all the more laughable.
Right, yeah, it's a laughable show, and...
Well, it doesn't end there, because the producer actually contacted me not too long ago wanting me to be a recurring guest. And, he was talking to me, and I wasn't, I guess, being too serious about it, because the way I feel about joining anything, I'm way more interested in learning something and sharing it. But I asked him, what channel is this? And he kind of mumbled under his breath. I said, well, wait a minute, what did you say? Did you say the History Channel? And he said, yes, and I laughed so hard it kind of ruined the conversation, and I felt kind of bad because it was rude. But the truth is that the contract that he sent me, which isn't even the real contract, it was, give them your first kid, let them give a colonoscopy to anyone you've ever talked to by the way, we own anything. It was ridiculous, and he told me that wasn't even the main contract. So it's just high silliness in the kind of organized world in terms of trying to learn anything new beyond what the mainstream has given us.
Selling out means a lot more than people think.
Selling out is, the contract that I saw for just the kind of, we want to shoot you and see if you're good enough for us, it was unreal. I said to him, you will never get a serious researcher. And he said, you'd be surprised what we get. And I said, maybe I would, but anyone who signs that is not a serious researcher.
So, go ahead. I'll let John here ask a question.
Oh, I would like to know, what, in your opinion, is the moon and what is space?
All right. People, that you talk to, they want answers. They think you shot this, so you've got to have, this is what science teaches us. So you want to shoot down the current theory, you better have another one in your pocket.
No.
To that I say poppycock.
Yes, good.
Flower genitals. What I have done is shown fraud. Now, unfortunately, the clip alone may not get people there, but it is the main brick in the foundation that will get you started. You ask me what space is. This is what I will tell you. Space has been intentionally misdescribed. Intentionally. NASA's mission and every other space agency that all have the vector logo in their symbol, all of them, operate above governments and push the same fraud, in the same way that the Chinese are claiming they're on the moon now and just got caught passing off Chinese people in space, which was actually footage shot in a pool, which was evident from the bubbles coming out everywhere. They got caught red-handed. Not to mention that there's scopes big enough on this planet to kind of show some of the things that we've been told can't be shown from terrestrial scopes. What space is remains to be seen. I can tell you that the kind of coded meme that we see in media, movies, and that thing always kind of point to water. But I can't tell you that's true. I have no way to know what is true. But I can tell you there is zero evidence that any man or machine has ever gone above what we call low Earth orbit, and that low Earth orbit is probably not even something we could call space. And to top it off, space doesn't exist in the way it's been described to us.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
So
we're living in a dream world, my friend, and it's constructed intentionally. It's been seeded in the minds of all the people who live around this world, and it's fraud of the highest order, and it's coming apart now. As a matter of fact, here's proof that it's coming apart. I expect to see NASA go away in my lifetime. It's unfortunate the actor Elon Musk has his private corporation to step in where people won't have any recourse to get anything out of a private corporation, not that we did with NASA. But I recently, some people were trying to get me, go look at this private microsatellite company. They're going to send things to the moon. And I said poppycock. And so I went and looked. So I'm looking at the resume of all these dudes on this supposed microsatellite launching private company. And they're all claiming 20, 30 years in aerospace industry. And I said, well, wait a minute. 20, 30 years of aerospace in America means NASA. Very few places you're going to get aerospace. Maybe McDonnell Douglas, couple places, but you're all going to be in bed with NASA if you're doing that. Not one of them used the four-letter word. Not one. And one dude even writes that he worked on the Apollo missions with Werner von frickin' Braun, and he will not use the word NASA in his resume. None of them did. And that is demonstrative of what is happening. Not to mention that a few episodes back in National Geographic magazine, the cover was us folk who understand that the moon landing is a fraud. We were on the cover. So there is another proof that we are making such an effect on this lie that has to be serviced by these people till the end of time, that they put us on the cover of maybe one of the last internationally circulated magazines that has any real circulation. That's a badge of honor there, you see. And these are evidences that what I'm telling you, for a logical person, is not only possible but likely.
I have entertained the question that I think comes to anybody's mind who ends up thinking the way you just described, and that it's all fake. And once you get to that point, you have to entertain the question, why perpetuate the illusion? Why come up with it in the first place? How does it change the way people think about their nation, about their world?
It's a simple thing, man. If you logically look at the history we've been handed, not that I buy into it, because the truth is that most of us cannot see back beyond maybe a great-grandparent. So anything you choose to believe beyond that is you're just choosing to believe it. You have no basis to confirm it or not confirm it. It's just what you grew up with. It's what's been said a lot, so you accept it. Having said this, it's pretty evident that royal families, the Vatican, people like this, that since we've had what we assume is a semi-modern civilization, had everything. They had all the money, they had all the land, they had all the power, and they never lost that, did they? They're still holding on to that. But if you look back to, like, say, a popular show like Downton Abbey or something, in that construct you're being handed, you're looking at better people, the ruling class people, the royal people, the special people, speaking 6 languages, having awesome school, having endless funds, having all the land, all the access to important knowledge, and the people working can't even read. So you see, fast forward into the modern age, what you are looking at is a construct in which you have been taught to work within the system of control, but nothing about the system. And those are the facts, Jack.
Fascinating.
Boy, that's...
It's all logically deducible.
I mean,
if you want to try to prove it,
So, you know, it makes me think of Lawrence Fishburne in The Matrix saying, look, it's all designed to turn you into this.
Right.
A copper top.
It's a hell of an allegory, that movie.
Isn't it?
Oh, it's on more levels than you understand. And then you got to ask, why do they make movies like this? Are they making fun of us? Are they trying to inform us? I mean, I guess you could bring that one up at the dinner table and argue endlessly. Point is it is a hell of an allegory, and it is maybe how accurately its allegory is could be argued, but it is showing you a glimpse of what you are slapped across the face with. It's a little bit like Sandy Hook. So 9/11 happened. No, hear me out, man.
Okay, no, go ahead.
9/11 happens, and a lot of people in the world said, wait a minute, something's not right, but not a huge amount, at least not that we're aware of. So time goes on, and everyone's talking 2012, there's a big awakening, there's this and that. Well, I've been online, and I've got a technical degree, and I've been online since before I've been on computers since before the Internet. What I noticed is 2009, there seemed to be a very large awakening. By the time Sandy Hook happened, there were boatloads of people saying, not so fast. This is not right. Very quickly, they were demonstrating there was no Internet to that school for the previous 3 years that had been closed. They just went down the line and ripped it apart in ways that are not arguable. But the reason I bring it up is because of the medical examiner, that kind of creepy, freaky dude named Carver, who got up, and it was clear, man, that dude's either on drugs or he's falling off script. Something's not right about that dude, right? But look at his name. He's the medical examiner who stood up there telling you he just carved apart so many kids for his autopsy job. They're slapping you in the face with wordplay. They create a construct to seed the fear and violence into the minds of the population as a control mechanism and as a mechanism that lets them do things like pass Patriot Acts and make us all pull down our pants when we want to get on a plane, okay? But his name is Carver, and he was the medical examiner carving up those kids. You're being poked in the eye. You're being made fun of because you're a monkey in their eyes. You see.
See, that's the thing. Somebody told me, I was talking to them about the moon thing, and they said there are too many people involved if it's a hoax, somebody would talk about it. And I'm like, no, don't you understand? They look at the pardon my term, the plebeian masses as just that. We're plebes. We're below human.
You see, but there's another part to this. There are plenty of people who work for NASA who are good people raising kids. They're doing the best they can at a job they think is, they may be designing an Atlas rocket. That's what they are doing. But you see, they don't understand above their pay grade. And there are plenty of people, documented people, who walked away having worked on the Apollo missions. Right before the launch, they said, F this, I'm out. Well, how is that? You work 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years or something for this big launch that's going to put a person on the moon, for God's sake, and all of a sudden you say, I'm not doing this anymore? You know, you can see the cracks in the system. The problem is nobody's willing to consider that there are a group of people that are so heinous, so psychopathic, that they would publicly air on global television this event that was wholesale. You know, here, let's look at the Red Hot Chili Peppers, okay? How about that? Because we're teased and slapped in the face all the time. The Chili Peppers have told us, space may be the final frontier, but it was made in a Hollywood basement. There it is. Words have meaning. What next?
Jeez.
Now, Crow, I'd like to touch on some other subjects, just because we don't have that much more time left with you. But I wanted to talk about YouTube censorship. As I understand it, you're quite familiar with that.
Terrible. I'm launching a podcast because of it, and I subscribe to maybe a handful of people who are, and I won't associate their channels with me because I don't think that's a cool thing to do unless they tell me it's a cool thing to do. They're putting their necks out, pointing out the fraud that is the kind of governing system of this world, gone wilder than a pack of jackals with their terrorism BS and their shootings every other day, and they're outing this stuff in a systematic way, and they're getting screwed with. They're having 3 strikes on their channel overnight, being shut down, being locked out with no excuse given for 2 weeks. They're getting strikes as if YouTube is the DMV and you have to go to their damn class.
Yeah, was it last week? We had 2 weeks ago. We had PK22 on.
There you go. There's one of the guys.
He just said he was been locked down for the last 2 weeks.
There's one of the guys, and I actually heard from PK that I think it was PK. I apologize, PK, if I get this wrong, but I believe he was telling me in a comment that he just uploaded his first video that was 2 or 3 minutes long, and it took him over 2 hours. You see the game that is played. But not only that, there's other people in that circle that I watch where they're regularly not put out in the live feed. So people are not alerted to the new videos that are going up, which has an effect. And not only that, I know firsthand that videos get viewed more than you're being allowed to see on the YouTube count. And the reason for that is, see, they play this game when you put a video up, and they got this real-time viewer, supposedly. And what happens is you put a video up. Some of my videos clear 3,000 hits. If they're real good footage and I got something really cool from, my telescope, or maybe a weird thing in a chemtrail or something, or a disappearing plane cloaking out, or whatever it may be, and it's going to be a popular clip. I may have a few thousand hits in the first hour or two, but they hold the count the public sees way down, and in the real-time viewer you can see what they're allowing to be the real count, which is probably also a lie. But what that does is anyone who went to a video and said, wow, this is uploaded an hour ago and it's already got 5,000 hits, I'm going to watch this. And the inverse, what they're doing is a person comes and says, oh, it's got a couple hundred hits, or it's stuck on 301, like they do. So I may or may not watch this. So what? I'm down the road. Click, click, click. It's a game, and this is what kicks my butt. YouTube has its servers, last I checked, which has been a while, I must admit, in California. To me, that means that this supposed free speech that all of us Americans thought we grew up with is being shown for what it is. This company is wholesale denying the freedom of expression, of speech, of communication, and there is no one answerable. Not only does Google own YouTube, but what's AdSense? AdSense is this bizarre thing where we run these ads to try to recoup the thousands of hours time we put into videos. And first of all, YouTube takes the lion's share. Nobody knows for sure what the real hit count is, or what real money was made, or what the real value of the ads that actually got played was. We take their word for that, so they're lying there. The hit count we know they lie on, so that's outright theft. If they tell you 300 but it was 3,000, they've just stolen from you. But AdSense will shut you down, and you have zero recourse. You have no one to call, no email to send, and that is the epitome of the idea of taxation without representation. So you can kind of see the value of a place like YouTube. I'm going off, I'm starting a podcast. Half of it will be free to everyone. Half of it will be $5 for the express reason that I will be working towards serving my own video from there and doing whatever the heck I want and talking about anything I want. And here's the rub. YouTube comes to you and says, give me the longest video you can make, free. We're going to data mine you. We're going to control your life. We're going to censor you. We're going to do all the things YouTube does, but give us your video for free. Now go out and get your own website, and you'll find real quick, you want to do a podcast with voice only? Not too bad. You can serve that up a reasonable person without money-lined pockets. The minute you want to serve your own video, it's a whole other thing. And there is the construct that forces people to deal with the BS that is YouTube. And so I'm going to try to subvert that. I'm going to try to hold up free speech, use my own website, my own podcast, and get to the point where I can pay for and serve my own video. And not only that, have my own chat area where I am totally accessible to the people who want to talk and not have a troll in sight.
Now, what's your website?
It's going to be Crrow777radio.com.
And is that with the 2 R's again?
Of course.
Okay.
And so it will be announced on my YouTube channel when it happens, and I expect early January at the latest. It's become a whole thing to do the whole credit card gateway. It's just not as easy as it used to be. Some years ago in, well, I guess the Wild West, where we did what we wanted, reported to the IRS if we wanted, but now the banks are becoming the police for the IRS. You know, no, you can't wipe your nose. You know, the IRS said so you can't have an account with us. It's coming to that.
Those of you who are listening in or who are listening to this recording, if you want to update on what we're talking about, we started talking about the lunar wave, and we've moved. The lunar wave is a phenomenon that you can catch on video that shows almost like a refresh rate going across like it's re-rendering itself. The image is re-rendering itself. It flows across the moon. And you filmed this back in 2012. You've gotten to the point where now you want to discuss these things, and the fraud that is being perpetrated, the biggest lie ever perpetrated on the human mind, and you want to talk about it and subvert it. You were meeting resistance from the construct through YouTube and Google.
Yep.
And now you are going to have your own website, Crrow777radio.com.
Yeah, and that's solely because some jackass down in South America bought Crrow777.com and then put it up for sale as a premium site for a few $100. So that's how the system works too.
Now, before we have to end, I did want to talk about our chemtrails, because that's another set of videos that I've seen you put out that are some footage is pretty amazing, where you can clearly see that some of these planes are spitting out something other than just contrails. Would you mind? First of all, are chemtrails real?
Well, there's no argument, and any person who comes to you not understanding that chemtrails are real is either fortunate enough to live somewhere on this planet where there are none, which is harder and harder to imagine every day, or they simply are willfully uneducated. And even a simple image search in a Google search engine for chemtrail will give you an array of images that if that doesn't spark you to think something's going on here, then just go back to sleep and leave the conversation. Chemtrails are real. Again, I have hundreds, probably thousands of hours of filming, documenting, and proving. I've driven across this country since August 3 times and documented them in everything from freezing weather to hotter than hell weather. It's a real thing, and that sets aside all the very kind of bizarre objects we call orbs in the vicinity of chemtrails. But here's another thing that is being done wholesale all over the place, clearly modifying weather, Lord knows what else, clearly spraying 3 known heavy metals, which is documented in lab reports all over this place, all over this world we live in, and no one will fess up. Well, there are a couple. NASA's on the record in one video actually using the word chemtrails and admitting they were spraying lithium, of all things, into the ionosphere. And lithium, I believe, is a psychotropic drug, so
it is.
They are studying wind patterns, we're told, with lithium. Really? It just goes on and on. You see, you live in a construct of control, and even the air you breathe is not beyond, manipulation. And chemtrails are a vile, vile thing. When I left San Diego to move to the East Coast, I left on Thanksgiving Day, actually. Got stuck in Amarillo in an ice storm, and I got over to the East Coast, and I had like I think 5 days or something to get ready to film the transit of or the occultation of Venus, the light in the sky we call Venus, supposedly going behind the moon. I had told everyone that there are reports of a see-through lunar disk at the new moon, and when the new, not old, new moon is a sliver. Unfortunately, this was going to happen during an old cycle in the moon, and words have absolute meaning. So I knew the conditions weren't the best, and it was going to occur in the daytime, not the night. So it wasn't going to be new, and it wasn't going to be dark. But I watched through crystal clear skies for 5 days, every morning getting up before light, tracking these two night lights we call Venus and the moon. And on the morning of, got up, pretty good shot, getting ready to drag my stuff out into some pretty cold East Coast weather to film this event with a full spectrum camera and try to see if I could see Venus through the lunar disk. Lo and behold, the first chem plane shows up at dawn. Within an hour, I had counted 30 and quit counting, and the sky was closed in under an hour. And this goes on all the time. Almost every time I have announced the best opportunity to film a lunar wave, we've had problems with chemtrails on the given days or stretches of days where it's been mentioned. Chemtrails is a big damn deal because we all breathe this air. One problem that's confronted me, and it's vexed me for a long time, is people have asked, well, why would they spray that stuff? They have kids. They have a family. And that has always been a vexing question.
They're going to breathe it too, right?
Yeah, that is a very vexing question to me, and I cannot answer it, but it does not take away from the fact that they are spraying all over this world. There's only one place that I have heard from in this world from multiple people that claims they've never seen it, and that is in the Himalaya, up in the Himalaya, where it's known to be kind of a pretty pure environment. I've heard from one person. I thought, well, that's only one person. But over time, I've heard from a number of people in that part of the world that say they've never seen a chemtrail. But as I did my 3 trips across this country since August, I can tell that if you're in Kansas or maybe, parts of Oklahoma, it's not quite as obvious and not quite as often as places like San Diego, Boston. You get down to Virginia, your jaw will drop the hell off your face when you see what they are doing every day, all day, low out, middle out, high altitude, billowing this crap out. And the people there that I spoke to when I visited in August said they had never seen a sunrise or a sunset in 2.5 years because of the chemtrailing. And I can tell you, as I left there to go back to San Diego on the most southern route, taking I-10 towards New Orleans, it didn't look in places like chemtrailing was going on, but every single day as I was driving west looking in my rear view and the sun came up, it was smudged out and you couldn't see the rise. The same thing occurred at sundown as we were driving home to San Diego.
We're all done, Crow. We're out of time.